Good morning, y'all. It is Andrea here at VW Family Farm. Come on, Pep. Pepper, the farm dog, and I are out going for a walk. We're going actually to do two things. We are getting some exercise because vitamin D and a little exercise is good for everybody. It's good for my mental health and something I try to do almost every day. So I'd encourage you guys to get outside. Secondly, we are going to check our cows. I just like to lay eyes on them. Lane, our teenage son, is the one who moves them every day, but this gives me a chance to do two things: get some exercise and see the cows for myself. So I want to give you guys some practical tips while we go on this farm walk. Some of our most asked questions about raising beef, and specifically grass-fed beef. So I'm going to try to give you kind of a starter intro if you're interested in doing this, or maybe you're just interested in how we do it. So probably the top most asked question we get about raising cows is, how much land do you need to raise a cow? Because there's a lot of people that are not looking to raise like a whole herd, but they do want to raise their own beef. And so that's a pretty easy one. If you have even just an acre of land, you could definitely raise a stalker calf, which basically what I mean is like a steer or even a heifer that you want to raise strictly for beef for yourselves. You're not keeping long term, you're just raising it and then you're going to process it. Once you get up to more like 5 acres, 10 acres, and then on up to like 20 acres, 20 acres and above, like 20 to 50 is a good size for raising calves. In what I've researched and read, just how many, once you start to improve your land and you can fill that with cattle that you're rotationally grazing, that could potentially be income for one person. Especially in that 20 to 50 acre range, you could raise enough, especially if you market it right and you're selling it, you know, at top price for beef, and you're doing the practices to produce a good product, you could definitely make enough for one person. Now here on our farm, we have ourselves that we're trying to build this thing from the ground up, but we also have our kids that we're looking to the future and would love to eventually be able to employ them with a good income. Right now we do employ them as part-time help, but it would in no way support them as adults with families. So we're still in the building process ourselves, but that just gives you an idea of where it can go. Second thing to consider is, people ask, how much does it cost to get started in cattle? Well, that is going to vary greatly depending on how you do it. Here on our farm, we have a mile of water line that's buried underground because we are rotating this large field, and this is where they stay a lot of the year. We do move them to other paddocks to, you know, fertilize and build the soil in the winter sometimes, but for the most part, this is where they rotate in the summer. This is where we're watering. So that was a huge added expense. And then we've actually put out seed and everything. And so if you're starting with a field that has really no grass or not very much good grass, there's going to be some seeds in your seed bank of your soil, but eventually those are going to run out. So we actually had someone that was growing crops on this right before we started rotationally grazing it. So for the first few years, we had seeds in the seed bank from where they had grown crops, and those came up. But as those, you know, lived out their lifespan, dwindled away, they were not crops to come back every year. We didn't really have anything. So we had to spend money to put seeds out here. We had to look into things that would grow in this area. So you could estimate about $150 per acre if you're gonna seed it and if you're gonna rent a seeder and things like that to establish some grass. And then you're still gonna have to do some soil health building with your cows and rotating them around. But a lot of that will take care of itself. But that's just an estimate if you have to start from basically nothing. The next thing is infrastructure, and that is going to vary greatly depending on what you do. So we are surrounded by farmers that use barbed wire. 5 or 6 strand barbed wire, sometimes even just 4, but that is labor intensive, it's expensive, and it breaks and all kinds of things. Some cows and bulls will challenge it, they'll jump over it, they'll go through it, they'll break it down. It's just, it has a host of problems. People will cut it, all kinds of things. We have moved away from that to what you see in my hand here, which is electric fencing or hot wire. So we are standing right here in the middle of our pasture. So there's pasture on both sides of me. The cows rotate one side and come back up the other, and that takes usually at least a month to do, which is good because it gives the soil time to rest. But what we have done is this fence behind me is permanent. So it has rebar posts. We spent one fall building all of this, and then down both sides of our big field, you can see that tree line over there. There was grown up old barbed wire fence. It was not good. It was not good enough to hold in a cow, and it's overgrown in like briars and things. So we actually used that to our advantage. We left that and we offset just a little bit with the permanent hot wire going down the sides of the field as well. So now even when they look at the hot wire, it looks like there's a hedge behind it. So to them, it doesn't just look like an open escape. So really that has worked out really well for us. And then I hope this makes sense, but then we move down each sides of this permanent hot wire and make our paddocks with temporary wire. We go down and move those wires for the temporary paddocks, and then we come back up. And we can make those as big or as small as we need to. Lane moves them every day, and if he sees that they have not eaten it, they might stay 2 days. If they've eaten it quickly, he might make the next pen bigger. He might make the next one smaller. It's worked out really well for us. So that is gonna be a cost up front, but I would definitely highly encourage you to look into electric fencing. The cost is up front, but you're gonna have a cost either way if you're building fence, and then it has just done wonders at keeping the cows in. They respect it, they can sniff it, they can feel the electricity, they don't try to touch it. If one touches it and gets popped, the others seem to stay away as well. It's just been a really great thing for our farm. So we're walking back here to the cows. I'm laughing to myself because this really feels like I'm interviewing myself. So the next question is, what would you advise? Cow-calf pairs? Would you go with mama cows? Or would you go with stockers, meaning ones you're gonna raise for beef? Well, that's a great question. I would actually not recommend you guys start with mama cows and cow-calf pairs. Unless that's just a burning desire and passion of yours, I would definitely recommend you start with stockers. Get some that are like maybe a year old. And I would also highly recommend if you're gonna have a grass-based farm, even if you have to drive half a day to go get your stockers from a grass-based farm, you will be better off in the long run. We have bought some before that were from a farm where they were fed every day. They were dependent on feed. They didn't know how to forage as well for themselves. They were dependent on that feed truck feeding them high volumes of feed every day. And those just tend to not do as well when you switch them to just a grass-based diet. So I'm not saying it can't work. It worked for us, but we did have some heartache along the way. But I would just recommend, if you can find grass-based, get those. The other reason I would start with stockers is because when you're just reading about cows on the internet, or even you're watching YouTube videos, yes, those calves and cows and whatever of that certain breed might do well for those people in their area and their certain setup, but you don't know exactly what you're gonna want. So to go out and invest in a herd, even if it's a small herd, and lock yourself into that breed, I just personally think you'd be better off to find out for yourself. Get some different ones, get some, get some South Poles, get some Herefords, get some Black Angus, just get a variety and see what does best for you and what you like the best. Different breeds have different growth rates, have different temperaments. I mean, this might sound, kind of petty, but different looks. What do you want your farm to look like? All those different things. So I would say start with a couple stockers. Like I mentioned, you can buy them at about a year old. You can feed them grass, let them rotate on your farm, or if you're gonna feed for, a year. and then you can process them. You can have some more coming up in the meantime, so you can have a continuous supply. But I would just not recommend just going in whole hog with buying mama cows right off the bat. Also, I would recommend take into consideration all the prices that you're gonna have to incur and start setting aside money for that. Just like you were buying groceries at the grocery store, this is gonna be your groceries. And just take into consideration, like I said up front, the infrastructure. Once you get that out of the way, you're gonna have to buy some animals. You're gonna have to feed those animals for probably like a year. So you're gonna probably have to take them through a winter. Consider, hey, where are you gonna get it? How are you gonna get it home? All those things. Take into consideration all your expenses. And then this is just our personal belief and motto, and it has been ever since we started homesteading and farming and raising our own food, is if you're doing one for your family, do at least one for someone else. Someone out there is looking for it and does not have the ability to do it, and they're happy to support your family in doing all these different endeavors, and it will help you out tremendously. For the longest time when we first started, all the money we spent just came out of our personal money. There was no, farm, there was no business involved or anything like that. It was just us trying to raise some beef or some pork or whatever the case may be. So if we could raise an extra or two and help deter some of the costs from our personal budget, it was such a blessing. And I've had so many people tell us it was such a blessing to them to be able to find someone that was willing to raise them something. So I would encourage you, even if you don't ever want to go into this for a business, do it, because it will help you out so much. And finally, just like I told you guys that this field got to where it had no grass, your land will improve. The longer you raise cows, the better it's gonna get. Now you're gonna face some things. We faced an almost total wipeout last year from armyworms, but we learned lessons and we made it through, we persevered. We've faced having to sell off cows because of drought. But that would have happened no matter if we just were farming 1 acre. So I just want to encourage you guys, hold on. It will get better and better, more than you possibly could imagine. And not to mention, the rewards are not all just monetary. If this is your dream and your passion to raise cows, I just want to encourage you guys that you can do it. I don't care if you're on 1 acre or if you're on 1,000, you can do it. I hope some of that helped you guys, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching. We hope you come back to the farm sometime, and God bless.